When it comes to building your glutes, there's a lot of information on social media and it can be a little confusing on what exactly you need to be doing and how to actually do it. So I'm going to show you guys literally 8 exercises that you need to be doing in order for you to build your glutes. Like, these exercises I've done for years and they have transformed my glutes from literally having long back, no glutes. You couldn't see my glutes from the side, front, any angle, honestly, to it poking out in everything that I wear. And I'm literally sometimes just like, that's not like, that's me, you know? And I want you guys to have the same results as well. So if you guys have never seen my face before, hi, welcome. My name is Tashana. I'm a certified online trainer and I work completely remotely on my New Body app where I coach women how to achieve their own like body goals. Before we go into the actual exercises, I do want to break down the glutes for you because you do need to have at least some type of understanding of how the glutes work and what the muscles are so that you guys know what you're doing a little bit better. So when it comes to the glutes, you have 3 muscles: the gluteus maximus, medius, and minimus. Now on your actual body, I hope you guys can see me. The gluteus maximus is like the bigger part of your glutes. It takes up most of the glutes and it falls from the lower part all the way about 1/3 of the way up, and then on top you have the medius, which is slightly covered by the maximus, and then you have the minimus, which is completely covered by the medius. So those 2 muscles kind of follow along this trajectory of your glutes. Now, just for reference purposes, when I do refer to exercises and what muscles are being worked, I am going to say upper glutes and lower glutes. So what I want you to think of is literally just drawing a line horizontally along the middle part of your glutes. And the lower part of that is going to be the lower glutes, which essentially is like the lower part of the gluteus maximus. I'm sorry. And then the top part, which I'm going to refer to as the upper glutes, will be the upper portion of the gluteus maximus, medius, and minimus. So before we go to the gym, quick gym fit. This is actually sports bra from Amazon. Super cute. We'll leave a link down below. And then my leggings are from Sweaty Betty. I think that's the name of the brand. And perfume, we're gonna wear Jo Malone Cherry Blossom. I've been wearing this perfume to the gym like every day. I just love it. Also, if you guys do want to train with me one-on-one online coaching, I'll leave the application form for that link down below. And if you want wow, that went right into my mouth. If you want a workout program where I literally just give you all the exercises that you need to do, so you don't need to do any further research, you just go to the gym, do what you have to do, leave, and get the results 5 weeks later, I will leave the link for my workout program for the glutes down below. There's a beginner version, advanced version for the gym, and then there's an at-home version. So everybody can get the gains. Like, no one's left behind. So let's go to the gym. So we're going to focus right now on the lower glutes. So that's the half part of the glutes that we spoke about when we split it in half. So the first exercise are going to be RDLs. And RDLs essentially works your hamstrings, so the muscle behind your legs, and it also works the lower part of the glutes. So when you guys are doing your RDLs, start with your feet about shoulder width apart. Okay, you want to brace your core. So when you brace your core, what you're going to hear me say a lot in this video, it means expanding your stomach horizontally. This is breathing in. See how my stomach rises vertically? And then bracing my core, it expands horizontally. So you want to think of like when you're sneezing, coughing, laughing, you know, when your stomach gets really tight, that's what that means. So feet about shoulder width apart. When you're doing your RDLs, if you have your legs straight, it's going to work more hamstrings, but if you have a slight bend in your knee, that's going to release some tension in the hamstrings and pour more tension into your glutes. So slight bend in your knee, and all we're going to do is hinge at the hips, which means pushing your butt all the way back. And what's going to happen is your torso is slightly going to fall because you're pushing your butt back. So think of this movement more so as a front to back rather than an up and down movement. So it's not a matter of dropping your chest all the way to the floor, but more so pushing the butt back as far as you possibly can. So usually for most people, you're gonna stop when the weights become just in the middle of your shins, and then you wanna come all the way up and then repeat. Keep your torso nice and straight with your back flat and come up. When you're doing your RDLs too, super important, don't let your shoulders roll forward because that's gonna round your back. You want to have your shoulders back so that you always have a nice straight back so that you don't feel it in your lower back. Now, if you're doing RDLs and you ever feel them in your lower back, chances are very high that all you're doing is just bending and extending at the back, which is what you don't want to do. So it's a hinge motion, pushing your hips back. So think of there's a wall behind you and you want to touch it with your glutes. The next exercise is going to be reverse lunges. Once again, this is targeting the lower part of your glutes, your quads, and your hamstring. So when you do reverse lunges, you are really working more so that front leg. So the foot that is in front of you, and then the back leg is just there for stability support. It's not really doing anything other than that. So when you're doing your lunges, start with both of your feet side by side, and then all we're going to do is step the leg that we're not going to be working, so the leg that's going to be there for stability and support, behind you. And you want to be on your toes, so you don't want to be on your foot entirely, heel off the floor. Then all we're going to do is we're going to go straight down, bending this knee and bending this knee at the same time. Try to keep your shins straight, and you want to lean slightly forward and then come up. So by leaning slightly forward, you're gonna get a nice stretch in your glutes, because if you stand upright with your chest, you're gonna get more engagement in your quads and less engagement with your glute. Your glute's still gonna be working, but if you really wanna grow your glutes, you wanna do everything you can to get more engagement with your glutes. So slightly lean forward, not too much. You don't wanna have chest to knee, just a slight lean forward, bend both knees down, all the way, get a nice stretch, and then come up, pushing off of the leg in front. So you don't want to push off of this leg. That leg is literally just there for stability, okay? All the way down, get a nice stretch, and come up. Breathe in as you go down, exhale as you come up. You don't have to touch the floor with this back knee. Just get as close as possible so you get a really good stretch. And if you want to get even more of a stretch, you can do a deficit. So that's just putting like a step board, a plate, or something where you can step on top of with the front leg, so it's elevated, so that you can get beyond your range of motion, which is what deficit essentially means. And if you notice that one leg is stronger than the other, which is completely normal, by the way, like muscle imbalance is a common thing, all you really have to do is do more sets or more reps with the weaker leg. And I always would advise you to start with the weaker leg, because the second leg is always going to be the more challenging leg to do, because you're going to be tired. So don't put yourself at an even more disadvantage by doing your weaker leg for the second leg. So if your left leg is weaker than your right, always start with the left leg and try to do a little bit more reps with the left leg so you can kind of get that muscle imbalance balanced out. The next exercise are squats, which has been a little controversial if they work the glutes or not, but they do, okay? Squats work the entire lower body, so your quads, your hamstring, and your glutes. This doesn't mean that you should completely neglect it. You should still do them, but there are a few things that you can do to get a little bit more glute engagement with your squats. And there's also a wide variety of squats. So we're gonna do back squats, and we're also gonna do sumo squats. So when you do squats, they do work essentially more the lower part of the glutes rather than the upper part of the glutes. With a regular back squat, depending on your body and your anatomy. So someone like myself, who is very much long-legged, I sound like a freaking spider or something, but I have long legs in comparison to my upper body, right? My torso is shorter than my legs. So when I squat, I'm gonna have more of a lean forward, right? I'm not gonna be able to have my chest really upright. So for me to get really low and deep in my squat, you guys see how I'm leaning forward? This is what's gonna help me get a good deep squat and a good range of motion, which is what you want when you're exercising. You wanna try to get as much of a full range of motion as possible. And what that essentially means is just going through the entire range of your joints. So your range of motion may look different from someone else's range of motion, and you can obviously get more range of motion. The more you do an exercise, the more you stretch, the better you get with your mobility, right? So I've noticed that when I do my squats with my feet a bit wider in a stance and my toes pointing outwards, I can get deeper in my squats without winking my butt than if I had a more narrow stance and my toes pointing forward. For me, this is like, ooh, it's hard. I can't get that low. So I just do what works best for me. And this doesn't mean that your squats is bad. It just means you're doing a squat in regards to what your body shape and your anatomy is. So everyone's squats will look different. Doesn't mean that one person's squat is better than the other if it looks a little different from yours. So for your squats, whether you do them with dumbbells, a barbell, Smith machine, whatever, brace your core. So remember, expand your stomach, horizontally, push your butt back. So this is what's going to get some glute engagement more than the typical squat. So rather than just going straight down and up, we're actually going to push our butt back. By doing that hinge motion like you would when you do RDLs, you're going to get a nice stretch in your glutes. Go down and then come up. You can go a little bit lower. Try not to wink your butt. I'm looking at myself because I know I tend to wink my butt if I go too low without the proper form. And I'm feeling it more in my glutes. Now when you do sumo squats, same concept, but this one you want to have a wider stance because it's sumo. So open up your feet past your shoulders, toes pointing out, and same thing, brace your core. But now what you're going to do, even with the other squats too, you always want to push your knees out. So you want to avoid having your knees cave in, right? So push your knees out as you do the squats, specifically, especially with sumo squats. Really drive those knees out in the direction of your toes, pushing your butt back, and then come up. And you want to make sure that you're keeping your chest slightly forward to get that nice stretch in your glutes, and take your time. Don't rush through it. Next, we have cable kickbacks, which will work the lower part of the glutes, and it's also going to be an accessory exercise. So this is an exercise you want to do at the end of your workouts because it's something that you can do like 100 or so reps without really going to failure, and there's no need to like exhaust that muscle for something that's easier relatively than something like a hip thrust, your bigger lifts, your bigger compound lifts. Okay, so when it comes to cable kickbacks, there's many different variations on how to do it depending on what you're targeting. So because we're going to be targeting that gluteus maximus, what I like to do so that I make sure that I don't feel it in my lower back, I step back and I like to have a tabletop-ish position. So like my chest will be about 45 degrees bent because this is 90 degree where I'm a complete L, and then this will be more 45 degree. Brace your core so that your back is nice and straight. Hold on to the cables. Bring your knee all the way in because you want to get that full range, and then kick back, hold it, really squeeze your glutes at the top, and then slowly bring your leg back in. So you always want to be in control of the movement and not have the weight be pulling your leg back in and just swinging off momentum. So take your time, slowly kick back, hold it, squeeze, and then slowly bring the knee all the way in. And as you do your kickbacks, you want to slightly have your toe pointing outwards. So not pointing forwards, but pointing slightly out to the side. If you've been training your glutes, and you probably have heard about split squats or Bulgarian split squats, and you know how much they suck. Like no one really likes doing them. I don't like doing them, but they work. They work. But I'm going to show you guys how to do it and how to get proper glute engagement when doing your Bulgarian split squats. So there is a way that people speak about where you extend your working leg out straight onto your heel, then you stand up, and then you position the back leg on a bench. So that way you know where exactly to position this front leg, because that seems to be a very tricky thing for a lot of people. Now when it comes to the back foot, you can place it like this. You can place it like this on your toe, whatever feels comfortable for you. Brace your core. Make sure it's nice and tight, back is straight. All you're doing is you're bringing your butt back and down to the floor. Try to keep this shin nice and straight, not too vertical. And as you come up, you're pushing off of this leg. So your back leg is literally just there for stability and balance. Now, just like we did before with the regular reverse lunges, the more upright your chest is, the more quad engagement you get. Lean forward slightly, and you'll get more of that stretch in your glutes. Like you should feel it stretching all the way down here at its fullest stretch, and then come up. So when you do Bulgarian split squats, if you feel like your balance is a little bit off, it could be that the bench is too high for you. So you don't have to do it with a bench. You can do it with something below the bench level, like a step board, or even like one of these soft boxes back here. You can use that. That is obviously below the level of the bench. And then that will still give you all the benefits that you will get from Bulgarian split squats. You also can elevate the leg in front so that you can do it deficit wise, which once I said before is going below your range of motion. So you're gonna get more of a stretch, and you should feel your Bulgarian split squats in the leg that's literally in front of you. The back leg is there just for stability purposes, like when you do your reverse lunges. Next are gonna be our hip thrusts. Now, if you want to grow your glutes, hip thrust is a freaking staple, okay? Like you have to be doing hip thrusts at least once a week. But to grow your glutes, I will say this now, and I will stand 10 toes down on this. 3 leg days a week is optimal. So doing a hip thrust twice in that workout split will be great. You can do bilateral hip thrust with both legs on the floor, single leg hip thrust, B-stance hip thrust, calves, glute bridges. You can do pulses. You can, like, there's so many different variations. I hope you guys can hear me. The music is kind of loud, but there's different variations. Just pick the one that you want to do. And if you're a beginner, highly recommend just stick to the basics. Just stick to regular basic hip thrusts and go from there. When it comes to the hip thrust, you want to make sure that the bench or whatever you're using, 1 is stable and 2 is a perfect height for you. So how to know that is by sitting all the way back right and making sure that your shoulder blades fall at the edge of the bench. If it's falling either too high or too low, then you have to get something that is going to fit where your shoulder blades fall with the edge of the bench. So you don't have to use a bench. You can use a softbox. You can use something else, like those lower benches that are connected to the bench press. You can use those, just something that's sturdy and falls at the edge of your shoulder blades. So once you do that, you want to bend your knees, okay? And all we're going to do is we're going to be pushing our butt, so thrusting it up until we get a full hip extension, all the way up using our glutes, and pause at the top. You want to make sure that your shins are nice and straight. You don't want to have them too far out, because then you're going to get more hamstring engagement, and too far in is going to give too much of a quad stretch, so too much quad engagement. So nice and vertical your shins. What I also like to recommend is to keep this part nice and tight. So rather than doing this, where I'm using a lot of my lower back and I can feel it, tuck everything in. So nice and tight, chin towards your chest, come down and squeeze, keeping that nice pelvic posterior tilt down to the floor. Try not to touch the floor, and squeeze. So you want to bend at the hips and then fully lock out and extend at the hips, squeeze your glutes, and then do the same thing. Keeping this trunk of your body nice and tight will help protect your back and not let you feel it in your back. Now, when you do your hip thrust, the way you position your feet in terms of pointing forward, pointing out to the side, wide stance, narrow stance, is up to you. Whatever gives you more glute engagement. So for me personally, I like to have a wider stance and my toes pointing outwards. But for you, you can do more narrow, more pointing forward. It doesn't matter. I also like to do my hip thrust with a resistance band above my thighs. Well, above my knees on my thighs, because what that does is an abduction movement, which is basically pushing my knees out, which will help target the upper glutes as well as the lower glutes, which is what the hip thrust works. So the hip thrust works the entire lower part of the gluteus maximus and the upper part of the gluteus maximus. It's not a complete upper glute exercise. We will get into that later, but it does work a bit of that upper part from the gluteus maximus that we spoke about earlier. Now you can also do single leg hip thrust, which is essentially the same thing. So you want to make sure that you still have the shoulder blades against the edge of the bench. Now we're only going to be working one leg. So one leg is flat on the floor. The other leg is going to be elevated off the floor. Same thing. Keep your trunk nice and tight. Push up, squeeze, and slowly come down. Chin tucked. Squeeze. Shins are nice and vertical. And this is going to help you work one glute at a time. And it's also going to help you figure out which glute is stronger than the other. Because you might notice that the left side is harder for you to do than the right side. So once again, do the harder side first and then do more reps with the weaker side. Now for your upper glutes, we're gonna do exercises that are moving our legs away from our body. So those are called abduction exercises. So one of my favorite ones that I've been doing religiously, I don't know what this guy's doing. I've been doing religiously that has literally helped me get that top part of my glute work to get that projection from the side is Medius cable kickbacks. There's different ways to go about this, but one way that I like to do it is standing lateral from the cables. Place the non-working leg in front. My working leg is gonna be behind. I turn my toe in, slightly rotate my hip inwards of the working leg, and then I kick out to the side and then slowly bring it back in. So if you place your hand literally on top of that upper glute area, you should feel the muscle contracting as you kick your leg out. And remember, you're kicking out to the side at about a 45-degree angle. For the upper glutes now, so that's that shelf, that projection, you want to do abduction exercises. So the hip abduction machine, which is this thing over here, is the thing you want to go to. You want to do this at the end because it's an accessory exercise, and it's easy to do progressive overload because you have weights that go all the way up to like 300 usually. So make sure you start with your knees all the way as in as possible together. So you have to use the lever on the side to bring it to the smallest number. Sit back. This is going to help you target the upper glutes mainly. I'm going to show you guys the difference in a little bit. So you want to sit all the way back and then open your legs as wide as possible. Feel the contraction in the top part of your glutes, and then slowly bring your legs back in and repeat. So you want to control the movement as you bring your legs in. And as I said, as you open, you should feel the contraction. So you can always put your hands on top of your glutes. That's what I like to do to really make sure that I'm feeling that engagement. Now, if you want to work the entire glute, so the lower and the upper glutes with the same machine, you will lean forward so that you get that nice stretch. Hopefully by now you guys kind of understand leaning forward gets you a nice good stretch. And then you open, same concept, and close. So this, you might notice, you can do a lot heavier with weights because you're utilizing more muscles in your glutes. So the maximus, which is the biggest muscle, to carry out this movement. Whereas sitting back, you might do lighter weights because it's a smaller muscle that's being utilized. If you lean forward, you feel more of the entire glute stretching and working. Whereas if you're leaning back, you should feel just that top part of your glute working. So I hope you guys found this video very helpful in terms of exercises to help build your glutes. These are the 8 exercises, as I said, that I still do to this day, and I have even my clients do, and they see great results. It's obviously not an overnight type of thing. It's something that you have to consistently keep doing and also do progressive overload with it. And if you just stick by this and eat your protein, you want to make sure you get enough protein. Creatine II is a really good supplement. I'm going to leave those also linked down below because creatine and protein powder just work like hand in hand with your gains. Like, that's your best friends. But if you be consistent with that, consistent with these exercises, you will be on the right track. Also, when it comes to programming your workout split, as I said before, you want to do 3 days a week of legs. But because you're doing a high amount of legs per week, you want to make sure that you're not overdoing it each leg day. So I would say pick about 4 or 5 exercises. You can do like 4 compound lifts. So those are like your squats, your RDLs, your hip thrusts, and then you have 1 accessory exercise at the end. You want to make sure though that you are targeting the upper glutes every single leg day. So those abductions that we showed, also the Medius kickbacks, those are exercises that you want to throw in there at the end of your leg days as an accessory exercise that will target the upper glutes. So that way you get a full rounded glute and not just lifted from the bottom, but also that projection at the top. So I hope you guys found this video super helpful. If you have any questions, leave them in a comment box below, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Bye.